Good morning, everyone. Jim Laird here from Largo, Florida, with a Dr. Stillman in California.
Have you heard the new nickname for their governor out here?
I can only imagine.
Mussolini.
Well, yeah, he's kind of got that same kind of vibe.
That's right.
I don't think the military uniform would really do him any good, but I mean,
I don't think it would play well to his base either.
No, he's got the Armani suit though, so that kind of plays into that whole mafia kind of boss kind of thing. Except most mafia bosses have a lot more common sense than Gavin Newsom, and I would probably historically
about that, man. He's pulling it off.
Well, I mean, but I'm just saying, actually doing things that are good, like historically speaking, typically, unless you were an enemy of the mob, they actually wanted their neighborhoods to be healthy and prosperous, and like
that's fair.
They obviously they did terrible things to people that were their enemies, but
what you're saying is you'd rather have the mob run California than the Democrats.
Yes, I think the mob would do a much better job because they honestly would actually want to see people thrive.
So let us know what you think of that in the comments. We want to make sure we're
because they actually want
their people, the right people here.
They want their people to thrive so they can make more money, right? So,
oh boy.
Like that's the way I look at it. I would trust the mob to run the country more than the.
So yeah, I'm out here, and I want to make two quick comments before we jump into iodine. So, my sister's like, hey, listen, you got to come out to see the family. We have this beach condo in Monterey, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, great, fine. And I fly out here, and I'm like, okay, beach condo, California, July. My image of California in July is, girls in bikinis on the beach, surfers, right? And I get here yesterday and I drive down from San Francisco where it's 90 degrees. And I drive over these big, beautiful mountains. California is a stunningly beautiful place. If you've never been, drop by before it, either washes into the ocean or gets, destroyed by an earthquake or the Democrats, whichever comes first. And I'm driving over these mountains and I come down into Santa Cruz and then I get down into Monterey and I get out of the car and I'm like, it's cold. It's like 50 degrees here. What's going on? This has got to be the coldest place at this latitude in the Northern Hemisphere right now. And I just say to them, I'm like, why did you have me come out here from Florida where it might be 98 degrees and the Gulf might be 91, like bathwater, but it was so nice. Why are we vacationing here?
You should have brought your sauna space with you.
Well, that's my point I wanted to make, people. I'm glad you segued into that. You beat me to it. But people need to realize wherever you live, that first of all, there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only being poorly dressed, and I admit this. I made a silly assumption that it was going to be warm here, and I only brought polos and some long pants. I didn't bring a sweater. I didn't bring a jacket. I didn't bring a hat. I didn't bring anything. I should have like just Googled the weather before I left. But I just assumed, because how do you make latitude in the 30s in July cold? It's hard. I'm telling you. So, and we might not even be in the no, we're in the 30s here. We're in the low 30s. So
the 30s?
Get your latitudes. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant temperature.
No, latitude. Sorry, people. I think in terms of latitude when I think in terms of temperature and climate.
So you're talking about temperature in the 30s, and I'm like,
yeah, no. Northern Florida.
Unless you're talking Celsius, then that's warm.
Right. Yeah. Northern Florida, Texas, up into the sort of mid-south is the 20s. Florida itself gets down to like 22, which is almost inside the Tropic of Cancer. Hawaii's at 22. And then, most of the mid-Atlantic's into the low 30s. And then the high 30s, you've got the upper Midwest, New England, and the rest of it. And then I think the 30th parallel, I think is it 38th? I don't remember. That's sort of irrelevant. But anyway, my point is this. If I lived here, I would own a sauna space. It would be the first thing I would buy. Go watch my interview with Brian Richards. My affiliate / discount code is Stillman5. And I just have to say, light shapes life. How is it shaping yours? People are miserable when they're cold and it's dark. And so it makes one of the easiest things people can do, buy their light bulbs, the right lighting, get it right, and use your blue blockers, and it just makes all the difference in the world.
Or move somewhere else.
Yeah, but not Florida. We need a moratorium on Florida in migration for at least 10 years so the infrastructure can catch up. So anyway.
You can go further south like I am.
That's right. Jim's going to Nicaragua, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, and we're actually doing a retreat there in January.
We are doing a retreat there in January. Jim, are you going to start?
The info is on the link tree for now, and that's the sales page with ECI development, which is not very flashy, but in the next couple days, we'll be updating that, and then I'll be contacting Stan Efferding, who's going to be speaking at the seminar, and we'll be starting to promote that fairly aggressively. So, and while we're on this topic, why don't we talk about why we decided to have Stan Efferding come on? There's a lot of people in the quantum health space will kind of be like a little shocked, I think. One, I wanted personally to have somebody with more of who strictly works with performance athletes, right? We use his template a lot in our practice because it's just so balanced, and the normal person, if you tell the normal person they have to eat sardines and oysters and they don't eat
bikini and
yeah, I mean, yeah, and I recommend people get tan through clothing all the time, but most people aren't. You have to start them where they are, and most people are going to eat. They're going to have a hard time giving up their junk food anyway. So if we can get them to eat sweet potatoes and potatoes and good protein sources, and if we can get them to maybe think on the lines of eating more seasonally, that's a huge win, right? We can't just go from Pop-Tarts and Twinkies to oysters and shrimp, and that's all you're going to eat. And then you got to spend like your entire day outside. People have to come to that conclusion on their own. And then Stan, we use his 10-minute walks all the time. So Stan is on the same page, and he's got thousands of testimonials in helping people with autoimmune diseases and all sorts of things. So he's doing a lot of great things, but we also wanted to have somebody on the ballot that deals in the world of performance. Like, he trains UFC fighters. He trains, he's one of the strongest powerlifters, the strongest bodybuilder of all time. He's got immense experience in the realm of performance enhancing drug, peptides, all those sorts of things. And then we have Ashley, who's going to be hopefully joining us as well, who deals mainly with mostly women. So we wanted to have a very diverse.
Oh, is she coming? Have we confirmed that?
Well, she wants to come, yes, and so
okay,
yeah.
And for those of you who don't know who that is,
her husband wants to film it, and then she wants to come and participate as well. So
yeah,
but who knows with what they currently have going on, if that'll affect that or not. But so I wanted to have anyways a diverse panel that are all more or less on the same page. Like Stan and I, probably when it comes to sun exposure, I know he's had like a skin cancer or two. He's going to be a more on the moderate side of things, but he encourages.
We may convince him when we're down there.
Yeah, well, one of the main topics in his book is vitamin D and getting sun exposure. So he's on the same page overall, which he's not going to say anything that's radically against what we believe. But he's also somebody who can bring some insight to people in a different way. And if your number one goal is to put on muscle mass, well, Stan is your guy. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We like to talk to different people. We're not about, for me personally anyways, I really like to engage with anyone unless they become personal or hateful. Like, I'm not going to personally attack somebody just because they don't agree with me on everything that I do.
Yeah.
I mean, the miserable way to live your life is to attack people that don't agree, personally attack people. You can criticize people and you can objectively bring up, discussion, but to personally attack people just because they don't necessarily agree with where you're at is downright silly.
Yeah. And on that note, let's talk about iodine.
Okay, back to iodine. So why are we talking about iodine again? Because it's that important, and most people, this is something I think most people in the health and wellness space, from what I've seen anyways, really it is overlooked dramatically.
Yeah. And so in the title, we've got two components to this: energize your mind, and boost your body's potential, right? So I want to start with the mind part, because this is one of the most exciting things for me about iodine. If you look at the literature, iodine consumption tracks with IQ. And if you look at the literature on fluoride, fluoride consumption is inversely correlated with IQ. So the more fluoride you get, I hate to say this, but I'm just going to make it simple. The more fluoride you get, the dumber you're going to be. And the more
And
iodine
who knew this first? The Germans knew this first.
Did they?
Yeah.
How do you?
They put iodine in the water in the concentration camps and in their prisons.
Hold on a minute. But does that make sense? They don't want the prisoners to be smart.
Well, yeah, they want to dumb them down as much as they could and easily control.
You misspoke. You said they put iodine in the water in the concentration.
I mean fluoride. Sorry, fluoride.
Okay.
Fluoride.
All right.
They put fluoride. They put fluoride in the water.
Okay.
To dumb people
prisoners
down.
To be dumbed down. Yeah.
The Germans were really the first people that did that.
I did not know that. I've heard that, but have you ever confirmed that?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I've never actually bothered to do the research. I just heard that because it's great.
I think they're the ones that the Germans were big into pharmaceuticals, and I think they were one of the first people
Still are
mass producing it.
Yes, that's true. Okay, so that's the interesting thing about fluoride, right? For those of you who don't know, I think it's stannous fluoride, but I could be wrong about that. Fluoride is a byproduct of industrial aluminum production, which is part of why fluoridation became a thing. The aluminum industry wanted to dump all this fluoride somewhere, but fluoride's a terrible environmental pollutant. And they knew this, and they didn't have a good place to leave it. So they convinced municipal water supplies, I'm just going to say they were only too happy to sell it to municipal water supplies when the obedient idiots who run those municipal water supplies decided that it was going to be good for the gander, and they decided to put it in the water. So
it's great for your teeth. Is there any truth that it's good for your teeth?
I would say it's probably the last thing you need to do for your teeth.
No, but is there like any a slight truth that it actually helps your teeth?
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Okay, I was just curious how they sold that. Well, it's kind of like the soy thing, right? But they had one study that showed that soy helped postmenopausal women, and then they decided that we're gonna sell it to everybody, and the soy is a byproduct of soybean production, right?
Yeah.
So they had another toxic junk thing that they needed to get rid of. So why don't we convince people to consume it?
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant marketing move. So back to fluoride. Fluoride, when you give it to rats, clearly causes them to be anxious and confused.
People are not anxious and confused today at all.
Not in the slightest. No, not at all. No.
Very rational, very logical.
Totally logical. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Unbelievably so.
Men can have babies, yes.
Yeah, right. So iodine and fluoride compete with one another. I feel like I forget to mention that sometimes. If I didn't mention it before, I'm mentioning it now. And so they compete with one another, and that's part of why this relationship exists. More fluoride, lower IQ, more iodine, higher IQ. So it's part of why I eat seafood, seaweed. I supplement with iodine. Why iodine has this effect on the brain is because, iodine's a really, really interesting element. It's so big that it's actually, in relative terms, very relatively fat soluble, which is very unusual for an element that typically has an electrical charge to it. It's usually existing as I-. It's got a huge electron cloud around it. And because of that, you can actually take Lugol's iodine and you can dissolve it in fat. So if you have, we're going to have Charles Mayfield on later this month. I don't remember.
I think he's on Tuesday. He's on Tuesday. Tuesday of next week. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. And the day after we speak, I think we have another iodine topic on Monday.
Yeah. So he sells lard as a skincare product. I use coconut oil sometimes as a skincare product. I've seen people use all kinds of weird things for skincare products in the integrative health space. And my point is simply this: you can take iodine and Lugol's and you can actually dissolve it in the oil, and it'll stay there. Which is, try dissolving vinegar in an oil. Try dissolving water. Try dissolving any of these aqueous solutions in an oil or fat. It's hard to do, but iodine, you can do it. And that's because of its unique chemical properties and structure.
And that would be a great combination for, treating different skin issues, would be to be able to take iodine in through the skin.
That's right. And that's one thing that's one reason why I recommend it topically, because it's so effective for topical skin conditions. You can put so much iodine on your skin that it gets irritated and actually kind of exfoliates it. I've never heard of it causing any kind of dermatological problems, skin problems, like long term. So I recommend moderation in that, for the record, which I would be like no more than once or twice a day. But anyway, you can use the other thing, but skin, by the way. So 25% of your iodine is actually in your skin, and it affects your gland production, including all of your sweat glands and all of your sebaceous glands, your glands that produce sebum, which is where we get one reason why acne is linked to high fluoride levels and low iodine levels. So, and that's why I'll give iodine in high doses to people who have acne always, every time, until we get some results. And often they'll have terrible detox symptoms from that, by the way.
With iodine being fat soluble, is there a higher obviously everything, including oxygen, becomes a toxic at the right dose, right? Is there a higher risk if you overdoing iodine because it is fat soluble, unlike vitamin C that's water soluble that just gets flushed out of the system?
So the interesting thing about this is that guys like David Brownstein and now myself have been using high dose iodine in practice for a long time with thousands and thousands and thousands of patients. And, he's never had an adverse event or a serious illness arise in a patient who was using iodine. So, and I can't, we all constantly have people, not constantly, shouldn't say that, consistently. We consistently have people saying, yeah, I went to the higher dose and started to have more symptoms. And when I say more symptoms, they're usually symptoms, they're the symptoms we associate with high dose iodine, but I think they're actually related to the iodine pushing fluoride and bromide out of tissue and giving you these symptoms of detox. So there are insomnia, palpitations, anxiety, having too much energy, and then you'll also see rapid weight loss, which of course most of my patients, being women between the ages of 35 and 65, are ecstatic about. But anyway, Liesel asks, is iodine protocol the same for teens as adults? And Liesel, the answer is basically yes, but I would want to dose adjust it to their weight. I use 50 milligrams of iodine in adults and most of the adults I work with are between 120 pounds and 180 pounds. If someone's more than that, we may go higher. If someone's less than that, I would want to dose reduce it, and I would do that based on what percentage of, let's say 100 pounds they were. So if they were 75 pounds or if they were 100 pounds, I would reduce it by, 25%, 30%, 40%, something like that.
On a side note, he just doesn't go right to 50 milligrams. They build up over time on
absolutely not. Right? If you want my guidance on high dose iodine protocols, I do reserve that for patients of the practice. I will speak in more detail on coaching calls with coaching clients at the coaching practice. For those of you who don't know, I have a coaching business, which is everywhere, and I have a medical practice, which is operating in Florida and New York. And that's how I help people with these things in those places. But I don't dispense that information via the internet because I don't want.
You have an article on iodine protocol on your Substack too, don't you?
I have a lot of them, but the protocol is reserved for premium members. And premium members on the Substack, it's $20 a month. Also get a 30-minute Q&A with me every Monday, most Mondays anyway. Most Mondays. So,
obviously, if you've followed us for any particular period of time, we highly recommend that you get most of your stuff through food. But I think what you're saying is basically there's so much fluoride in our environment that iodine is probably one of the few things that you're going to actually recommend people actually take a supplement of, just to basically counteract.
Just like we talked about in our last live.
Right. There's fluoride embalming, like dating from everywhere.
And bromine because of these effects on the brain. And I want to explain why it affects the brain so much. The brain is full of fat. It's a giant mass of fat, effectively. And the iodine is critical for proper neuronal function. And I believe that the brain can function on very, very small quantities of iodine, but giving it more really improves its function. And I believe it's going to be one of the game changers for, you know, C-suite executives, high performers, high-level athletes, people who need their brain to be in top condition. And in a world full of fluoride and bromine, those people are being crippled by things that they can't even see. So it's one of the things I impress upon my high performers. It's not like it, you know, radically improves a lot of people's function, but pretty much everyone who gets the high dose notes some benefit. And the other thing then let's talk about how it boosts the body's potential. So it's interesting that you use the phrase body's potential. You have to understand that your body's vitality really comes down to your cellular bioenergetics, how much energy can be produced in your mitochondria. And that actually comes down to how big of a voltage gradient can you generate across cellular membranes. So to say potential as in voltage is quite literally the right way to think about your body's energy. And so with iodine, what we see is that because it's so important for so many cellular processes, it does indeed increase the cell's potential to produce energy by
Whereas
many
fluoride does the opposite. It decreases the cell's ability to produce
It's
energy.
what we call a dielectric blocker. And
Right.
dielectric blockers wreck the potential of the body. And it's one reason why if you go out and you look up like floxed, Floxxed, that's the slang term for people who've been poisoned by fluoroquinolones. And the fluoroquinolones poison people because they're loaded with fluoride.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you get sun combined with iodine combined with grounding, and you're going to be much better at conducting electricity.
But I do want to impress on people that, you know, all of this depends upon, you know, your overall health and also the balance of other minerals and vitamins in your diet. There's a reason why I don't put out, you know, content telling people to all just take my high dose iodine supplement or whatever.
Right.
Hayden asks or says, I have had acne, anxiety, and brain fog my entire life. Yeah, you're one of my prime candidates for iodine. If you were in my practice, we'd love to have you. So what we see, what was I saying, Jim? I was talking about iodine potential. Oh,
we take a broad approach because it's
you got to get all these other elements of your health in order.
The body is a multifactorial creature.
Yeah, and I'm wary of moving parts. And I'm wary of giving people high doses of iodine when their nutrients are not right in other respects.
Or if their body isn't healthy enough to handle the toxic dump that's going to happen during that, right?
That's a fact.
And that, you know, that's a lot of people get frustrated with their weight loss. They'll clean their diet up. They'll walk for weeks. They'll lose some water at first, and then their progress will slow down. And a lot of times they don't understand, like, guess where your body stores all of its fat,
right?
Or all of its toxins in your fat, right? And so your body's not just going to dump all that in your system if you're not healthy enough to clean that system out.
We see that over and over again.
Monique, yes, iodine without sodium is miserable. So yes, sodium and iodine go hand in hand.
Yeah, you need the sodium in order to get the iodine into the cells. And the sodium seems to help us also eliminate the toxic dump that we get with the iodine. So, Jim, good to see you this morning. Anything else you want to chat about? Any other points we should make?
I wanted to thank everyone for the feedback from yesterday, my rant yesterday. Got a lot of great feedback from it, a lot of great questions as well.
Did you? So what was the rant about? Was it about variability?
It was about variability, and I basically talked about how it applies to everything in life, from relationships to business to breathing to movement.
It's so important.
I
think of it. Yeah, it's actually a concept that was there's two places where I found this concept super helpful or very well articulated, I'll say. The first is in ecology. So ecology, every organism's got a range in which it can exist: temperature, salinity, pH, oxygen tension, wind speed, any number of different things can be mapped as something they can live within a range of, but they're all dynamic, right? So if you put, a puffin in a hot environment, that's one stress. But if you put a puffin in a hot, arid environment, that's another stress. And so the puffin in the hot, arid environment, may croak at 87 degrees and 0% humidity, but he may be able to, struggle on a little longer, even when it's up to 93 degrees, but it's 100% humidity, right? That may strike you as kind of a mean example, but I'm just using it as one. But the idea was that you want in a resilient population, you can expand that range of stress that things can cope with. And by expanding that range, you expand and improve their fitness and their fertility and all these things. And modern people, that range is really shrinking. And the first thing you see go when you've impaired the fitness of any organism is its fertility. That's the first thing to have abnormalities to it, which is why, the tip of the iceberg for women's health problems today is, oh, I have heavy periods. Oh, I've got painful periods. Oh, I've got menstrual migraines. Oh, I've got PMS. That's the tip of the iceberg. It's being covered up, right, with birth control pills. And that's just one example. I mean, with men, it's their addictions to pornography. It's their problems with sexual impulsivity. It's their problems with not having healthy relationships. Then they turn to weed. Then they turn to other medications, vape pens, video games, in order to basically medicate a brain that's not, and a nervous system that are not working optimally. But yeah, it's a really interesting topic. And then the second place was the Special Forces. Two guys who wrote a book called Building the Elite, which is a book about training Special Forces soldiers. And they had this concept where there was like a plateau of performance, where on that plateau, you could perform at a very, very high level in a wide range of environments. But as soon as you fall off that plateau, your performance rapidly degrades. And their goal with these operators was to define where that plateau needed to be, right? Like the SEALs, sea, air, land. So they obviously want to have place a priority, more of a priority on things like underwater or amphibious operations, right? Whereas with 10th Mountain Division, you're looking more at, okay, they're going to spend more of their time up in high altitudes and in, difficult environments with big elevation changes and extreme temperature drops. So it's really interesting. You got to understand that your body, you can't be all things, but you also do want to have that variability, because that's where we always see a limited range of options, whether it's you can't eat, these foods, or you can't do these exercises, or you can't go to these places, or you can't use these devices because they, set your system off. And that's the sign that you need to build your resilience, which is actually what Jim and I are all about.
Yeah, and if you want to basically check out the medical side of things, it's real simple. Just go to stillmanmd.com.
Yep.
And you'll be able to check out the medical side of things, put your information in there. We'll be sending you information on the programs we offer. You can go to Stillman Wellness for the fundamentals of wellness. You can also put your information in there, and you'll also get information on our coaching practices over there. If you want to sign up for Dr. Stillman's HTMA webinar, that's basically at the end of the month, where he's going to talk about the HTMA course that he's doing, just go to his link tree, hit the HTMA funnel, or you can go to the lives on the YouTube on either one of our pages and scroll down to the webinar that's the end of the month and just hit the reminder. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the questions. Please like, subscribe, comment. And I think you have a really controversial Monday masterclass coming up on birth control, don't you?
Oh, is it this Monday?
It might be this Monday. I'll have to look. But
so I actually I need to actually, Hayden, that's great. We look forward to having you. She says she's joining the medical practice.
That's wonderful.
Well,
let me look in here. Let me sign into StreamYard again so I don't leave the broadcast. And
yeah, I've got to change that actually, because I will not be.
Well, no, it's July.
My family on Monday.
Okay, so July 31st. You need me to move that for you? No, it's the 31st. I changed you don't have a Monday masterclass this Monday.
Great, perfect.
Yeah, that's on the 31st. Make sure you sign up for that one, because I have a feeling that one's going to burn the internet down. Birth control and detox, how to get rid of. I can't read the rest of it. Yeah. How to get rid of the toxins that birth control leaves in your system. I have a feeling that one's going to burn the internet down, so you're going to want to tune in for that one.
All right, everyone. Take care. Have a great day.
Take care. Oh, somebody wants to talk about nitric oxide. That's a good one. That's a really good one.